The Democrats, and that would include Biden, are not only interested in structurally destroying our constitutional system by burning down effectively the Supreme Court, burning down the Senate, change the legislative process. So the Democrat Party will actually own and now control our judiciary, the Senate, and the legislative process. One-party rule. I want to remind you that they've attacked the Bill of Rights on repeated occasions, including the First Amendment, when 54 of them voted to repeal the First Amendment, effectively repeal the First Amendment, because they didn't believe that you should have the right to support commercials called advocacy commercials that advocate a particular viewpoint. So they literally wanted to pass a constitutional amendment to limit your free speech rights. Also in the First Amendment, they do not respect religious freedom. And they believe they can make laws that impede religious freedom. So when religious organizations did not want to participate in Obamacare because morally they didn't want to pay for abortions, the Democrats, the Obama-Biden administration, fought to compel them to do just that. Freedom of assembly and association, you've seen how the Democrats view that. Cuomo with the Jews in Brooklyn, but they're not the only ones, and he's not the only one. Michigan, New Jersey, Illinois, California, freedom of assembly. It's right there in the First Amendment. And the Democrats attack it. The Bill of Rights. The Second Amendment. Endless efforts to eliminate the right of the individual to keep and bear arms. Endless efforts. The war on the First Amendment, the war on the Second Amendment, and also a war on due process. Crucial. Due process. Do you remember when the Democrats argued that if you're put on the no-fly list just under a suspicion, no evidence whatsoever, you're put on that list under a suspicion, then you should be denied the right to purchase a firearm? Burning up the Fifth Amendment. No one can be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process. And remember what I said about targeting free speech. They disdain the Bill of Rights. Ninth Amendment to them doesn't exist. 10th Amendment to them only exists if they can use it to nullify federal law that they reject. Otherwise, they don't even believe in federalism. So the Democrats have been at war with the Bill of Rights. Now they want to change Article 3. Now they want to change Article 2. Now they want to change the legislative process. And the irony in all this is they don't even believe in the Constitution. They don't even believe in the Constitution. How often have their surrogates in Black Lives Matter and other organizations said that the framers were slaveholders, therefore what they created is of no merit? So they used the Constitution to destroy the Constitution. They used the Bill of Rights to destroy the Bill of Rights. The very people who are rioting in the streets, claiming that they have a First Amendment right to be protected, don't even believe in the Constitution in the first place. And why should you be surprised? The entire progressive movement is a result of Marxism. The entire progressive movement. I date it back as far as I can date it back as in the late 1860s. But it got a head of steam in the late 1800s and the early 1900s, and it hasn't stopped since. Every so-called leading intellectual of the progressive movement from the late 1800s to this day writes and argues that the Declaration of Independence and all this talk about natural law and individual unalienable rights and the Constitution of the United States, this governing law that they gave us, that they insist has to be imposed on us for the rest of time, must be eviscerated or must be overcome if we're to advance a modern, progressive society. That is, some form of Marxism. They call it democratic socialism. They must destroy the barriers that are in front of them because they don't believe in the limits of government. They believe that their ideology should rule. They have used the Democrat Party as the vessel through which politically they intend to operate. You know, Pivens and Cloward's now dead, but his wife Pivens is still with us. They argued that the Democrat Party needs to be basically taken over. That needs to be the funnel through which radicalism, Marxism, can operate. And that's what they're doing. So that's what this election's about. You know, the Democrats like to say everything's on the table. Under our constitutional system, everything's not supposed to be on the table. It's just one election. One election. The results of that election are not supposed to be a determinant in what kind of nation we're going to live in. There may be debates over policy and so forth, but not whether or not the entire constitutional republic is up for election. But it is. It is. The power-hungry Democrats who've been radicalized have no intention of slowing down. They have no intention of negotiating. They look for excuses, like the confirmation of a new justice, as a basis to seize power, or it's race, or it's climate change, or whatever it is. The wealth gap. Whatever it is, they use excuses or fig leaves in order to advance their cause and to grab power. The Democrat Party today is saying, if we're in the majority, we're going to take control as a party of the United States Supreme Court. We're going to take control as a party of the United States Senate. We're going to take control as a party of the electoral process and eliminate the Electoral College and give power to our constituent groups, to give power to our voters, and disenfranchise those who are unlikely to support us. So the voting system will be owned by the Democrat Party. The judiciary will be owned by the Democrat Party. The Senate will be owned by the Democrat Party. The legislative process will be owned by the Democrat Party, as I've told you for years, because for them the Democrat Party comes first, much like in China where the Communist Party comes first, much like in Iran where the Islamo-Nazi Party comes first. The party is the society. The party is the government. And you're seeing the quote-unquote fundamental transformation from a constitutional republic to a Democrat Party tyranny. That's what you're witnessing. That's what's in front of you. And that's what's at stake. And they will limit your free speech rights to protest. They will limit your right to gather and assemble. They will limit your religious liberty because they want to impose their ideology. They want to limit your right to a Second Amendment in order to quell any protest. They will limit your due process rights under the Fifth Amendment. This is what they are prepared to do. And the media, their day will come. As long as they toe the line, as long as these new newsrooms owned by these massive international corporations continue to acquiesce, or even better, continue to propagandize on behalf of this party, the Democrat Party, they will be left alone. But when they fail, they will be treated like Fox News. They will be treated like conservative talk radio. They will be treated like conservative media outlets. They'll be threatened from time to time. That's what's at stake. Whether we have a republic that we leave to our children and our grandchildren, or whether the Democrat Party now owns the federal government and everything that flows from that.